Vamos a iniciar, compañeras y compañeros, buenas tardes. Vamos a iniciar un nuevo ciclo de formación por este sistema audiovisual.
Comrades, good afternoon. We are beginning another educational series using this audiovisual system. The theme we will now address is the issue of what instruments do we require for doing politics. We will look at a variety of instruments and begin, of course, by defining politics. Do you know some definition of politics? Well, there are really two major definitions. There are many in the dictionary. You can find them. But the ones I am referring to here are two opposing concepts. The vision of conservative politics, which we usually hear about, and it's frequently used in analysis, describe politics as the art of the possible. The art of the possible. What does that mean? It means that having analyzed a concrete complex situation within a fixed correlation of forces, you say, all right, the enemy is very powerful and I am weak. I cannot do anything against this powerful enemy. So what I have to do is adapt myself to the situation. That is why this concept leads to political opportunism, which we can call ducking and weaving. That is to say, I adapt as best as I can to the existing correlation of forces. Basically, the conservative politicians defend the concept saying that they are realistic, and to be otherwise is to be subjective, utopian, idealist. They say that to be a politician one must be a realist. That is a well-known realpolitik that some authors talk about. In the end, it means one must resign ourselves to do nothing, to accept the status quo. Some comrades don't know what status quo is. It is existing state of affairs to submit to the politics of others. And generally, what is the politics of others? Precisely the politics of the dominant classes, the classes who have state power at the time. Gramsci, many known this Italian Marxist thinker, considers that diplomats had to adapt themselves to circumstances around them. In some way, the work of diplomats is to adapt themselves to circumstances, to do what we call ducking and weaving, to be all things to all people. Politics, as Gramsci said, is something quite different if we think of politics as being revolutionary politics. For a revolutionary politics is not accepting what exists. A revolutionary is defined by the capacity or the desire and the dedication of one's life to change the existing situation.
Ahora, cambiar la situación que existe no significa que no tengamos que partir de la situación que existe.
Now, changing the existing situation does not mean that we do not have to take as our starting point the existing situation. In order to change something, we must start from what exists now. Therefore, we must acknowledge the present reality, the correlation of forces that exist at this time, not in order to adapt ourselves to the situation opportunistically, but in order to change that correlation of forces. We cannot deny the present reality. We cannot ignore it and try to act by wishful thinking alone. That is, willpower alone will not change reality. Willpower is essential but not enough. We must begin analyzing the forces as they are now. That is what Fidel Castro and his group did in Cuba. Do you remember that terrible repressive dictatorship of Fulgencio Batista in Cuba in the 50s? A dictatorship that relied on the armed forces of the Cuban political system, the army, an army that was not like the army of the Bolshevik insurrection at the beginning of the 20th century, but a much more sophisticated army. In the 50s, the world political analysts said that in those new technical conditions of the armed forces, it would be impossible to create an insurrection or a popular rebellion against an army. Fidel did not accept that, and was not that he did not accept the reality. Of course, his starting point was the real existing situation in Cuba, but he did not agree to sit back and do nothing. By studying the reality and studying the way in which the Mambises, the Cuban independence guerrilla fighters, had defeated the colonial army much more powerful than they were, and seeing that it was by using the guerrilla tactics that the Mambises defeated the powerful Spanish army, Fidel thought, we should do the same. Against Batista's army, we must use guerrilla warfare. This is a method in which the army is not confronted directly through a popular insurrectional struggle. Instead, you confront small army patrols out in reconnaissance missions, ambushing them. In this way, you defeat the army by attacking its weakest points, creating low morale among the enemy troops who feel morally weakened when a small group of guerrillas defeat them in numerous encounters. That was a very important factor in defeating the Batista army. It was by this method that it was possible, little by little, to change the correlation of forces and achieve victory against that army, which, accordingly to the analysts, could not be defeated by weapons. The character of a revolutionary politics is to start from reality and to seek the right method to change the correlation of forces. So politics is the art of making possible the impossible. In the next section, we will explain how this is done.